Hey, one of my favorite parts of the week, and I hope it is one of yours too. Awkwardly Awesome Podcast starts pretty quickly here. What is Jason going to say next? Um, he's going to say, okay, time for Awkwardly Awesome Podcast, episode 26 in 3, 2, 1. And then he's going to find the next thing to share. This is a really awkward start. It's going to go uphill from here. Okay.
Today's guest, Maurice Thibodeau.
Hey. Today I'm pleased to have Maurice on the show. Maurice is a creator and a connector on a mission to help people live the greatest expression of themselves. He does this by helping people step into the awareness of their life opportunity, which includes illuminating the highest areas of personal growth and activating their purpose. Please help me welcome Maurice Thibodeau. Hey, Maurice, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jason, I'm glad to be here.
Cool. Thanks so much for coming on. So we met a few years ago in San Diego at a conference.
Mm-hmm.
And my first question is, were you just that kind of randomly, like you were just wandering around the western United States and decided to, hey, drop into a conference and say, I'm here?
Yeah, well, it wasn't that random or synchronistic, but there you go. There's my first awkward. See, I love the name of your podcast because I can really just flub this out and it's going to be perfect because that's what this is about. I was there very intentionally. It was actually the very first conference experience that I had paid for out of my own wallet after working for a company that, I was fortunate enough to travel around to those things all the time and get to do that as part of my job. This was one of the very first ones, the very first one that I had paid for. And I'm so glad I did. It's actually become a major part of my life and my work now.
So what made you take that step of paying for a conference out of pocket, and plus traveling from Winnipeg to San Diego can't be like nickels and dimes either. So what made you take this leap?
Yeah, it wasn't the first time I'd been invited. I had been invited by my friend Jason Duke, who actually just passed. Jason just lost his battle with cancer. So that's really, really fresh.
What?
And Jason had been following this guy named Steve Farber from the Extreme Leadership Institute for years. And whenever we'd passed, he's like, hey, you should check this out. And I had never really quite had the time. And when he asked me this time, it was right in the middle of me starting and growing a business. And when I looked at the website, and Jason was just a guy that I intrinsically trust. And it was like, wow, like this guy talks about two things that I absolutely love. He talks about business and he talks about love and personal development. That was the convergence of my worlds. So it was like, hey, I'm probably going to meet some like-minded people here that I hope to work with, that I hope to connect with, that I hope to energize with. So for me, I can't say it was an easy decision, because as part of starting a business, I was also watching every nickel and dime that I spent. It didn't hurt that it was February in Canada where I live, and the conference was the experience was in San Diego, and I got to hook up with my buddy Jason. I hadn't really traveled with him in years, so all those things lined up for it to be yeah, I think this makes sense.
Sweet. First of all, sorry to hear about Jason's passing. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a big reality check. He was a heart of a man, and he's in his early 50s. Had so much left. So thank you for that.
And then as we go here, if anyone watching has any questions, please chime in. I just ask questions from my perspective, but I love getting different people's perspective and questions and comments. So please comment if you have any. So a lot of people, including me at times, have been kind of wandering through our lives, just kind of hoping to find things that make us happy, but not really knowing what we want to do, or just being kind of lost and hoping to find something. But it sounds like starting your own business and then making this huge investment to go to a conference, that takes a lot of intention, a lot of knowing yourself and what you want out of life deeply. How do you get to that point of knowing enough to have that degree of confidence that you can invest your energy in something new?
Yeah, well, that's actually an interesting setup, because when I went, I would say that I knew enough, but it was really more of like, I would put this more in the column of a faith play, because I didn't really know. Like, I had just started following Steve at the time. I didn't know anyone else other than Jason, and it was a really early stage in my business. But I've always been one to, as you're evaluating opportunities, check in, and I use a pretty analytic approach to these things and to figuring out life in general. And when I looked at the parts that all fit with this, it was like, here's the cost, but there could be amazing opportunities to meet incredible people. I don't know for sure, but it looks like that could be the case. I'm going to get to spend time with somebody that I care about and haven't seen in a while. This fits my passions: business, personal development. So when all those things kind of were stacked up, it was like, it was enough of a yes for me to have the faith to move forward in attending the extreme leadership experience.
I like how you do that analysis. A lot of times I think we just see the cost and go, oh, I can't afford that. But you also looked at what you would gain. And then you took a leap of faith.
Yeah, everything we do everything we do has a cost of our energy, a cost of our time, a cost of our money. So as we go to move towards the next step, after I've thought about this stuff, and to have it be in alignment with my values, to have it be in alignment with the potential opportunities, to have it be in alignment with relationships that I want to step into and develop, I've gotten to a point that those decisions feel like they're easier for me now. And I think a lot of it's been through practice.
Our friend Marie already has a comment. Will you read that, please?
Yeah, sure. Life is short. That's why we have to appreciate it and make the best of it for us first. Yes. Serving ourselves first, and then contribute and help others to find meaning in their life and open themselves in the world. Yeah. Thank you so much, Marie. It's nice to see you.
All the way from Belgium.
Yes. So you took this you analyzed the costs and the benefits, and you took this leap, and what unexpected surprises did you get from saying yes to this opportunity? Oh man, the way it's unfolded, I could have never actually imagined. The number of synchronistic relationships and things that I experienced in the first day of that conference actually blew my mind. From the authors that were there and the titles of their books, to the speakers and and exactly what they were speaking about, it was totally in alignment with what my world was becoming more and more intimately about, like personal development and integrating that in our lives. And then I met Steve and got along really, really well with him. I met several people within that community and stayed connected with them. That led to me having enough of a base of what the work was about to take certification. So Steve runs something called the Certified Facilitators Program for Extreme Leaders. And that's a 4-day program that I went back to San Diego in the fall and took that and met another incredible 20 people that were part of my group. And that led to me those are the first people to experience my product. Because one of the things we do is talk about the OSM, the oh shoot moment, like stepping into our fears. And when I was sharing that, it's like, well, I'm building a business and this is scary. And one of the things that I was able to do with that group is say, hey, I want you to take the very first iteration of the life inventory assessment. And it was such a compassionate, engaged crowd to experience the work and give me really good feedback. And it grew from there. And I ended up speaking at Steve's next conference, which was incredible. It was another OSM for me. It was quite scary. Despite any of the public speaking I had done, it was like, sharing the stage with some really incredible, respected people. And then lately, we just finished launching the Extreme Leadership Mastermind. And I'm doing that in partnership with Steve. And it's an incredible, I wouldn't have thought that this was going to be this wasn't part of my business plan. It wasn't planned at all in the sense. However, when I connected with Steve, as I would do once in a while, and said, what's up for next year? In between his creative mind and my creative mind, and us both wanting to make a difference, we're like, hey, let's build something here. So that's full circle. Like, that's the whole 3 years. I said yes to this thing that I was like, yeah, it's close enough to a yes, let's go. And now it's become a major part of my world.
I remember just being so impressed last February when I was sitting in the crowd and suddenly Maurice is up on stage and it's like, wow. Um so it's such an interesting interplay between a friend giving you an opportunity and you saying yes to that and getting more opportunities and saying yes to those and in hindsight 2020 it sounds so easy and straightforward and I'm kind of going it sounds so natural once we've done something but you talk about having OSM moments salamander soup moments so So can you talk a little with how those were trying to talk you out of the opportunities at some point?
Yeah, that definitely happened for me. And for as analytical as I am when I go to make these decisions, I would say it's really anchored on a value base. It's like, does it align with my values? And most of the major things that I'm doing and involved with right now are being open to say yes when it aligns without necessarily knowing exactly what it's going to turn into. It's been a cool, actually, theme that I've recognized in my life. But it's not always easy, and particularly with family and different different, I would say, dials towards like my degree of adventure and saying yes to lots of things is, I would say, slightly different than my wife's. So when we're balancing all of those things, like when I took extreme certification, I literally didn't make the decision until the night before. I called Steven, like, is there still room? This just doesn't feel right at the end. It was like, it doesn't feel right for me not to come. So I booked the Airbnb on my way there. I booked my flight like the night before, and it was like, okay, I'm going to San Diego for 4 days because at the end, like, it didn't feel right for me to say no. And I didn't know why. I didn't know why it totally made sense, but it just was like, this feels like it's going to be meaningful sometime. And I needed to trust that.
Wow. So up to the wire,
Yeah,
literally, it would have been so easy to be like, for you and your wife at the night before to convince yourselves, hey, this is just not going to. I mean, how often do we say maybe next time, maybe
right.
in 6 months or 5 years when we
Yep.
have more money or whatever? But you did it.
Yeah. And like, just crazy on what it turned into.
Marie points out making new experiences is changing things in our brain, changing or creating new connection and breaking the habits. What are some of those habits that we need to break in order to step into a whole new? And you can really speak to this right now. You're working with Steve Farber, who's one of the most progressive business leaders in the United States. What habits do you need to break to get there within a few years?
Wow, that's a question. So what habits do you need to break in order to, I think the way I'm interpreting it, like in order to maybe open yourself up to bigger, more abundant, new opportunities? I would say the first is recognizing your response to the things that you are afraid of, or the things that you might naturally say no, or even maybe, particularly the maybes. That's like, well, and a lot of the times I think we have a habit, and it's really, really easy to make it a habit because there's so many other opportunities and there's so many other distractions and deterrents that it's like, it's really easy to push it aside and say, not now, maybe later. And it gets on the never do list. That's where it usually can stay for years and years. So I think developing a habit of awareness of when I'm looking at an opportunity and I'm saying, maybe, take the time to go a layer deeper and say, what is this really about? Why do I want to do this? And list it out. Why do I not want to do this? And check in with your body. How do I actually feel towards it? And I think part of why it's easier to say maybe and no is we just beat ourselves up when we make a wrong decision. Like, you can say yes to things without the expectation that it's going to work out exactly, or it's going to be the most perfect use of the money at the time. It's like, if it feels right and if it's aligned enough, say yes without the expectation of knowing exactly how it's going to turn out. I think that's the other habit, would be just being really gentle on yourself. So the first one is awareness, and then the second one would be gentleness, to be releasing those expectations of when we say yes, and just really diving into the experience. Expect less and experience more.
There's so much there when you say pay attention to our reactions. How do we, and this is a huge question, how do we differentiate between butterflies in our stomach and elsewhere, and versus our body just saying no, don't do this. This isn't going to move you in the right direction.
Yeah, that's a great question, because it can feel the same way. The things that
Yeah.
Fear is there to protect us, to keep us safe. And I work with fear a lot when working with clients. And a lot of times it's the fears they're facing in their business or in their life. It can feel the exact same. And to distinguish between if it's a fear that is actually keeping you safe, or it's a fear based on some future experience that you're anticipating that you can't actually experience, or it's a fear based on an old story. Like, oh, I remember I did this thing once and it didn't work out, so I'm scared of that happening again. Well, there's no guarantees in life. So what I would say to distinguish between the two is to step towards it. So, I'm feeling butterflies, and without judgment, that could be protecting me from something. Or that could just be some story I'm following that isn't serving me anymore. How do I move into that? Move towards it and ask more questions curiously.
Okay.
Right? What is this really about? What's important to me here? And you can list these things down easy enough. And what's the, will this violate any of the values that are really important to me? Will this do harm? That's another really good question. And I think once you go down that well, you can start to look at it, be like, oh, actually, this isn't real. And this is worth me trying. It's feeling safe to try. So I don't know if does that sound helpful? Does that sound something that you could follow?
So you're saying we really have an opportunity you're kind of saying that fear is going to come up quite frequently, and we have the opportunity to differentiate time and time again. Is this fear keeping me safe, or is this fear keeping me stuck?
Right.
And you're encouraging us to write things down, or type them out and ask questions, because this is my interpretation. I'll ask you, what happens if we try to do this all in our heads?
Yeah. So it can get pretty confusing pretty quickly because right,
That's an
we're
understatement.
we're complex beings to begin with, and the thing about values, and this is where it can be really good to get clear on your number one value. But when I do values work, I try to get to the top 5, and
the high
thing
5
is,
values.
Yeah. So the top 5 values, and the thing is, the order of those values can flip flop depending on the context that you're thinking about. So I'll unpack that a little bit. So if I have a value of connection, a value of adventure, and a value of growth, let's say those are 3 top values. Well, if I put that in the context of a decision in my relationship, they might have different orders. Like connection, well, that actually might be the order for that. But if I do like a different category, like in my business, like check, sometimes the values will swap in like priority, and then you really got to look at that and say, okay, what's more, like it gets really complex. That's what I'm saying is like, okay, well, this one can sometimes conflict with this one. So we find ourselves, I think, at the crossroads of hard decisions that have our values face each other. And then we have to choose what is more important. And if you can do that work outside of a major decision, usually it's like you wait to the major decision, but if you do that work outside of it without the pressure of the decision, it can be a lot more rewarding. It can be a lot more like, I'll say you can do it with more flow and ease, because you can look at what's really important to me. You can analyze your past decisions without that pressure. And then when you have that lens of clarity to move through, when your next decision comes up, for me, I just recently redid a bunch of values work for the mastermind. And after doing this for 20 years, I'm still finding things out. It's like, oh, actually my top word is connection. And I deepened my relationship with that word, what connection means to me. So when I make a decision, the next major decision I have coming up, I'm going to be in a better position to make it, because I have a clear understanding of what connection means to me on that value grid.
Speaking of proactively doing this work, I love that idea. Talk a little about please talk a little about your life inventory assessment, because I've taken it and it was very proactive for me. I identified a whole area of my life that I was not thinking about, a blind spot. And
yeah, and thanks for taking it, and like it was a real joy to work with you with it. So the life inventory assessment, it's part of what I've developed from a personal practice that my wife and I have been doing for years, actually, like decades, where at least once a year.
Okay, so
yeah.
So let's back up a sec. How did you and your wife, I mean, start doing this? This isn't like typical of like going to a movie and dinner or something. How did you say, or did your wife say, "Hey, let's do an assessment and figure each other out"? Or how did it start?
Yeah, I was actually like that, but the other way around. I've always been a business nerd. I've always been reading and studying the top companies in the world. And I looked at what they were doing to create successful track records to build, 100-year-old companies. And they knew their values really, really well. They communicated them. Yeah, go ahead.
Are they flying? I raised my hand on my own show. That's awesome. So are businesses flying by the seats of their pants to create success?
Okay, that's a different
It
question. It
was
totally
just
did.
meant
Yeah,
as a joke.
it totally depends. Right, exactly. I get you now. Yeah, they're not right, and if they are, then their likelihood to fail is really, really high.
Okay, so back to how you and your wife said this. It was a joke, but then it didn't work, and I had to explain it was a joke. And oh well, back to
Now it's
you and your wife.
now it's awkwardly awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't a total ruse, but I said, let's go do a retreat. I booked this really cute bed and breakfast in the middle of nowhere, Saskatchewan, and our first night, I pull out my workbook, and I'm like, okay, like I really believe in this stuff, and we're quite serious at this point, so let's really dive in. And I had basically a workbook of things that we would explore together. First is like individually. It's like one of the first questions is you blue sky your life dreams. Imagine anything's possible in your life. Write it down. So we did that. We did some values work. We did some life inventory stuff, which got more and more mature throughout the years. And then the next day we compare. And now you're comparing outside of, just like I mentioned before, it's easier if you do this work outside of a conflict or a major decision or the pressure of life. When you do it intentionally, proactively, and with the intention of, hey, we're in this to win it. We're very different people. How are we going to survive? We're going to survive by doing the work. And it's kept us together for, I think we're getting close to 15, 20 years this year.
Okay.
I look ahead. I not back so much. So it's 15 or 20. It's a big year this year. 20 years, I think. Yeah.
Congratulations on your 15/20 year
Thank you.
anniversary. So when you say a workbook, had you created the first workbook you gave your wife to?
Yeah, I did. And I'm like, in personal development, like we're stealing from everybody. Like, and I think it's, so to say I created it, I don't, that doesn't feel authentic. Totally, because I created it from the great works of the business books I was reading and some of the personal development exercises I learned about. And I got this one thing from a professor and I got this thing. So it was a combination of the best things that resonated with me. And one of my gifts and one of the things I like to do is like architect, like put all the kind of pieces together and be like, okay, this feels complete. Bye-bye, Mary. Yeah. So that's that. So in a word, yes, I created it from the great works of many people before me.
So as creators, we do that oftentimes. It's like being a cook, kind of. You take ingredients from different things. I mean, I don't need to explain cooking to you or anyone else probably, but anyway, you synthesized it into something new. And what have you noticed about your journey with your wife since you've been doing this? Oh, first of all, how long had you been together before you before you went to
Yeah,
that bed and breakfast?
good question. We'd been together about 4 years, and it would have been probably within the same year that I'd given myself a deadline of I either got to ask this woman to marry me or not, because I'm in this. It's been almost 5 years. I actually gave myself a deadline, as romantic as that sounds.
But but sometimes we need a deadline to actually figure something out.
Yeah,
And you were good under deadlines. The night before you booked the ticket and went
that's exactly it.
to a 4-day training. Deadlines are good for you, Maurice.
I think they are.
But can you compare how you and your girlfriend's life were before you started doing the inventory together, and how it was for you both afterwards?
Oh, well, like so many things, it feels more like a journey and a process than hey, we had this weekend and everything changed. Because,
Yeah.
yay! Actually, that's exactly how it works. So, if you do this, everything changes and you'll last forever and you won't even fight. Yeah. So
For only
this
$99.99.
exactly. No, and honestly, even getting familiar with the work and like being open to it, and like that was a process. Like the first year she wasn't that into it. She did it because she loved me enough to like, okay, we're gonna do this stuff. But through the work, it has been foundational, depending on what kind of year we've had. Like one of the things when we come together, like we'll evaluate our own year and then we'll compare, and it's like we'll ask the hard questions. Hey, how am I doing in this relationship? Out of 10, how am I doing? And why? And if you could pick one thing to have me do better, what would it be? And then we'll also celebrate our successes. So it's an opportunity to look back and be like, hey, this is all the stuff we've had, to look back and say, here's what we learned. And when we've done that, it's created such a solid foundation that when life hits us, as it does, like we still fight and we still like have our stuff. It's at least now when we're going through that stuff, we continuously got better at repairing. We got continuously better at understanding if I'm wanting to go on an adventure, as I will often do, and not as often anymore. Like, because we do our values work, she knows that adventure and experience is way higher on my list than hers. Hers is safety and security. So we have different value sets, and there's certain things that when I go away, I try to really respect that safety and security. And eventually, like after years, she came to a higher level of acceptance of, oh, that's who he is. And that's part of what he values and needs. And we're partners in this. So even if I don't get it, I'm going to support it. And that took time.
But I guess if you never have these conversations and you never really get a chance to understand what's important to each other, you can just it can be a source of tension every time something like this comes up, and
not have it understood. Like it's like often it will lead to blame, or it will lead to like, oh, he doesn't understand me, or like, how could he do this to me? Those are like the typical, I would say, lower level responses to something that actually has nothing to do. It had to do with my needs and what I was looking for.
So that's a beautiful example of a relationship in a significant relationship context. How about in a professional context?
Yeah, in a very similar way, knowing your values and lining those up with your, so let's say in a professional area. Are you still there?
Okay, Maurice. Yeah.
I don't see you.
Yeah, I can see you.
Okay, that's very odd.
You don't see me.
Okay, that's fine. We can still talking. It's a podcast, right? So I don't need to. That's very odd.
So in a professional context.
Professional context. If you are in a, let's say you're going for a new job, that would be, or a new position, to look within yourself and be like, how closely does this match with my highest needs and what I want? So if it's a new job, you're looking at that environment and you're saying, okay, what do I notice about this environment? What do I notice in their language? What's important to them? How do they treat their customers? You can just go into somebody's lobby, or now on Zoom, you can ask value-based questions. And to me, it's a more foundational way to make a big life decision than being like, does this match my talents? That's important. Does this match my passions? That's important. But also, how does it fit in alignment with what I value as a human being? Because the people that are part of that company and that stay with that company probably value those, they're following a certain set. From my personal life, when I made the really, really hard decision to leave my really awesome corporate job, and after just doing some fresh values work, looking back, like what was missing? And so two of my highest values, so I said connection is one of them. Contribution is my second. Like I really had to think about which of those words was most important. And for me, I had lost an unacceptable level of both of those in my job there. I wasn't contributing at a level, like my talents, my skills, towards an outcome that I could see, touch, and feel like I had in significant ways, in the 12 years that I had been there. So that was hurting me. And then I also didn't feel as connected to the vision, to where we were going, to what the company was about, as I once did. And it's interesting. I look at the company now and I actually feel, because my wife still works there, it's a closer match now than what it was when I left. I feel like there's been a momentum and connection of human development and where they're going with their leadership program. It's really, really cool. So I can look back on why, against my values, on why it fit then and why it didn't fit then. And even looking back, it's like, oh, actually they turned a corner. And if I had stayed, maybe I would have found my way back there. But at the time, those two big things for me, they were in alignment, and it was sucking my energy.
And this is such a major conversation because we can spend 10 years, 20 years longer doing something that's not in alignment with us. And that can be really, Maurice?
Yeah. Yeah, I got you.
Now your picture's frozen. And that can be really, that can be really life draining.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're beginning to start wrapping up. But how do your values tie into the I Am Festival? Your T-shirt.
Oh yeah. So start with a connection. This was born off of connecting with an individual, Keith McPherson, who was sharing his music. So passion, love for music, doing a house concert, connected with a like-minded person that loved personal development and was super into the same things. We started to talk through that connection about what's needed. And I have a property of 80 acres, and I love to create. I love to create experiences. And through those conversations, we said, let's build a festival. Like let's build a wellness festival that we haven't ever really seen before, that would incorporate all sorts of wellness. So what I'm talking about now, it's my value for creation. That's one of my others. So the ability to create with another individual that cared about the same things, and with my wife, was just a really cool opportunity. And then service, that's one of my other ones. It's like, this can really serve. Our mission is to create transformational experiences with love. And when people come on the property, they are accepted with extreme love, I'll say, and they're invited to go curiously explore all the facets of their life, all their questions. And then we've got a number of experts, from yoga to mindfulness to meditation to dancers to creative artists, for them to go and explore their biggest questions with. And then there's a huge part of celebration. So my fifth value is experience. And we bring all that into a container of this really amazing experience. We celebrate each other together. We celebrate the questions that we have. We celebrate the answers that we find and continue to look for. So I really like the way you asked that question. I've never really answered it like this before,
Yes.
But it totally lines up. So it's like,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then, so I love to talk about the power of doing our imperfect best, and what I mean by that is we have a vision of our best, and when imperfections come up, we use them to learn from and then move forward, instead of using them as an excuse to stop.
Yeah.
In your line of work and in your line of thinking, what does imperfect best mean to you?
For me, so much of the work that I do with coaching, you still got me? Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Having people move in to their imperfections and fall into acceptance with who they are today, where they've been in the past, and moving towards that imperfection to a place of total acceptance and loving those parts of us too. That's one of the greatest human challenges. It's and when it happens, there's a transformation. I know, because I've gone through it a number of times, and that transformation is so freaking powerful. There's such a calm, all powerfulness of owning every part of who you are and stepping forward anyway, and owning your mistakes when they happened and continuing to try. That's never ends, because we're never, we're perfectly imperfect, right? It's like those words have dual meaning, because I think that is our existence. It's got a duality. And when we come to accept and love all of it, we can pick ourselves up easier when we fall. We can face the things that we fear. And we're also in a better place to celebrate our gifts and own the things that are really, really great about ourselves.
You're making my job easy. Speaking of gifts, you have a gift,
Yeah,
right?
sure. Yeah. If anyone listening, wants to dip a toe into some of the questions
Can it be a finger? Maybe they want to dip a
could be.
finger, or does it have to be a toe?
I prefer toe, but you know what? With the spirit of openness and acceptance, you can
In
dip a head in
connection.
there, yeah, an ear in there. I don't care. If you want to explore curiously, then I've built a life health quiz, which is it's a beginning. Because sometimes it's like, well, where do I start? How do I start to understand who I am better? How do I start to understand why I'm feeling about this way in a certain life category, about my relationship or my job? So the quiz that I have helps to do that in a really pretty quick way. And then there's options if you want to explore deeper and where to go. But that's totally free, and I'm happy to offer it to your community.
So how long does it take?
It's written as a guide, probably 20 minutes.
And how much does it cost?
Oh, well, the quiz is free. The
I mean,
assessment.
really, how much does it cost?
Oh, how much does it cost? Well,
I mean, it's just okay. It's a free quiz that's very, very generous.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for coming on. As you think about do you have any words for people as they go forward and encounter opportunities that might be like oh shoot moments for them?
Yeah. So I think the two themes would be move towards it, and with awareness and curiosity. And then the next step of that is be really, really gentle. Be gentle on yourself as you move through it with acceptance, and be like, okay, what am I actually deciding here? What's really important here? Yeah, so pay attention to the things that you are going to, say maybe to or say no to, and go a layer deeper with gentleness. And I think through that process, and my experience has certainly been that you can gracefully move towards more yeses and experience those yeses with a full and open mind, and then learn from each one of them. Some yeses are going to take you down a path that give you validation that wasn't the right thing for you. And some yeses will bring you down the path that will give you validation that this is my spot. These are my people. And it's a process.
It's a process. Thanks so much, Maurice. I know you've inspired me like all this week as I've been preparing for this and such, and what you say is inspiring and practical. Again, if any of you listening have any comments for Maurice or questions, please jot them down, because this stuff is important. It changes our lives, what we say yes to and what we say no to, and it's really fun to talk about. So thanks for a wonderful conversation.
Thank you, Jason. You're the man.
Gosh, these are all so fun. Thanks for tuning tuning in. I hope you enjoy them as much as I do. I'm learning so much about life, and I'm being challenged to continually grow and become a better and perfect best version of myself each week. So please tune in next week too, and it'll be awkward. It'll be awkward, but it'll be really awesome too. Have a great Wednesday or whatever day you watch this. Make it a great day. Okay, enough with the awkwardness. Now the outro, which is much less awkward. Hey Maurice.
Hey.
How did that feel to you?
Well, my it felt okay, but my computer is awkwardly freezing. So I was a bit nervous about like what the camera experience was, and it's never done this to me ever, so I don't really know what's happening. So other than that, it was a blast. It was I just love you. I love what you represent. I love what you're bringing into the world, and how you're like stepping forward, right? So I'm honored that you asked, and I'm really just happy to support. I hope that it was good for you.
Yeah, it was great for me. Is your computer back online now?
Well, it's weird because I hear you just fine and you can hear me, but all my screens are totally frozen.
Huh. Maybe just shutting it off and turning it on. Hopefully it'll be that simple.
Yeah. So, that's interesting. There you are. You're there. There you go. I see you there now. Yeah. Anyway, so, but other than like the little bit of kind of awkward pause, it seemed the volume was good for you and stuff. So, yeah, I hope it doesn't mess up your production.
Yeah. Someone said that when you said you couldn't see me, they said they could see both of us. So we'll have to look, but I think it should be good.
Cool.
Well, thanks so much for your time, and
yeah, my pleasure, man. My pleasure. You are you doing any speaking gigs in online communities at all these days?
That's still an area of growth for me. This podcast has taken a lot of my energy in the short term.
Yeah.
But that's good. The podcast is going well. I have guests booked into July, so
Wow.
so.
What are you most excited about in the future? What are you most looking forward to?
Just, I mean, I've always been attached to, for years attached to speaking about imperfect best. And I still want to do that, but I just want to get this body of work out however I can, because it's so important to the vitality of the human race. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
We're live again, by the way. So